love the theme song. It's super confusing. So what could be better? This is the Putty season finale. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that you're here. I feel like by now, maybe you've gotten a sense of kind of like what I say at this part of the show, just why Putty. Just kind of what materials we look at, what do we care about in Putty. So I like to talk about museum putty as an inspirational adhesive, something that sticks sculptures to pedestals. It's rarely seen, but it serves a utilitarian role in high institutions. It's malleable. It rushes in. We won't talk in metaphor too much beyond this point. Also, silly putty, obviously. A novelty object, a seemingly useless object that clearly the best case scenario with silly putty is to kind of plop it across your newspaper comic and distort, Dagwood's face or whatever. And so we are hoping to do that with the talk show medium tonight to appropriate and distort. I like to take this time to sort of respond to some critiques that I received from during previous monologues. I received the note that I haven't been doing a lot of distorting of the talk show medium in the last several episodes. That's for next season, I think. I was thinking that maybe I could set up and play behind the crowd. I don't know. Remember lightning bolt? I don't know. But I think that this is just Putty classique for the last episode. We'll get into distortion next time. What else is important? It's so nice to be able to stick multiple people together in this space, to have this live moment, to be awkward. Obviously, entertainment's really weird. I don't expect people to be entertaining at all times on the show. I don't expect people to be entertaining in normal life. So yeah, those are the moments that I really cling to in this experience. Just the weird ones, and I hope that we can shine a light on those tonight. What else? Oh yeah. So like I said, this is the last episode of the season. If you'd like to know. We've got big plans. We have big plans for next season. And if you would like to know about them, there are a couple clipboards with email newsletter sign-up lists out there. And I strongly encourage you to write your own human electronic mail name on those if you'd like to know the future of this production, the future of Putty. There are a few things I also like to do up front. I like to do an object report. So, past editions, I've highlighted. I was talking about the tiny book collection at the Lilly Library in Bloomington last time we talked. And I was like, okay. So, I read in the news that Sylvia Plath's ponytail is on display at the Smithsonian Portrait Gallery in DC. And I was like, that's everybody in Bloomington already knows that Sylvia Plath's ponytail is at the Lilly Library. And we've already seen that. So I don't know, no new news. That's not my object this time because I already did that library. I think that's not a worthy object for me. Although somewhat newsworthy. I have a good friend in town who has a coffee shop, and I like her a lot, and I like her coffee shop a lot, but I got kind of fixated by this jar full of individually wrapped apples that she had on her counter at her coffee shop, and I sort of posted up and asked people how they felt about the individually wrapped apples, and just was trying to collect that data from people who come up to the counter, and then I realized that was a bad thing to do. It just sort of reminded me of this guy that I ran into at a bar who just kind of aggressively waited to ask my friend and I about like how we felt about Bitcoin. So like, don't do that. So I feel like both of those don't really count as full object report. Like I'm just not all in for them. So in lieu of the object report, I thought that I would invite friends for a full environment report. So I had some friends who had the experience of staying at the Fantassuites motel in the, I believe it's officially called the Alien Sex Room. I don't know why it wouldn't be called that. Anyway, Joe, there's some visuals, I think, but I'd like to invite some guest correspondents from the field to come and talk to me about, just to do a more thorough object report this time. So please welcome Bree Robinson and Heidi Weiland. Hi, how's it going?
Hello. Hi.
Can you hear them?
Hi.
Can you see the things that they saw? Is that happening yet?
Where is this?
Oh wow, okay. Okay. So Heidi and Bree, can you please describe what happened to you at the Amerisuites? Well, okay, what's the official name of the place that you stayed? Just the facts first.
I think it's the Red Carpet Inn. Red Carpet Inn, Phantom Suite.
Do you mind taking the mics off the stands?
See, this is we like this part.
Hey. Red Carpet Inn, Phantom Suites. It's in Greenwood.
That's shortly to our south, right?
Yeah.
The cardinal direction.
Truck stop, hybrid. There's a lot of old vintage cars just hanging out. And then, the lobby was sparse.
There was a lot of wood paneling.
Is that a theme? Or the lobby itself didn't seem to have a theme,
Right.
but the rooms
No theme.
do.
Twin Peaks, maybe. Yeah.
Can you tell me about what I'm looking at in this photograph?
That is me. I brought a spray bottle of bleach and I put that in the hot tub thing before we got into it and took a selfie.
Okay.
So
How would you describe the bathtub, the hot tub in this room?
it was old. I would guess that it hasn't been updated since the late 70s, early 80s.
Or cleaned.
Or cleaned. I cleaned it, so it's clean now.
I appreciate that additional.
Everybody go stay in that room now. And it's all RV.
So the walls are sort of mirrored around this futuristic bathscape.
Yes.
What else is in the room?
Real quality paintings of space.
Right.
A weird car
I saw it. You put your handbag on
dining
it.
thing. Yeah.
I think there's a picture of that. We'll see. Oh, there's the bed. What can you tell me about this? I wasn't able to put up, there was a picture of you looking really fly and there were light strips around it, but instead I've got this sort of more exploratory shot that you submitted.
Okay. Yeah, that one was probably too much.
Do you want to say what I'm doing in this one, Heidi? Since you
Checking for bed bugs. As one does.
Did you find any?
I didn't.
No.
So I think
And we
we're
got corroborating reports from some friends.
Who had also stayed in this room?
Yeah.
On our wedding night. Woo!
Yeah, shout out to Lily.
Woo! It's awesome. Don't let them fret you, guys. You sleep in a fucking spaceship.
So I believe this is the spaceship that an audience member is talking about.
Yeah. There's a mirror. That's a
There's a mirror.
yeah. That's a mirror shot.
Okay.
Oh.
Great. Approximately how many selfies did you get out of this experience?
374.
And worth every dollar. Yeah. do you have any other comments that you'd like? Any other just essential information to impart to us about the Mara Sweets Alien Sex Edition? Fantasy Suites.
Everyone should go.
Oh, hey.
You should go. Emily's right. It's awesome. So do it. Check for bed bugs. Bring your own bleach. Have fun.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So expect more, guest correspondence from the field in the future seasons, funded seasons of Putty. I don't see why there shouldn't be more of that constantly. Especially, I appreciate that Heidi asked. She was like, we should do the object report, and I was like, yeah, absolutely yes. So also feel free to come forward to me if you have suggestions of objects or environments that you feel should be profiled. So I don't have much more in the way of announcements. I didn't do the applause gradometer that I was going to do, which was just going to be my way of figuring out if I should go to grad school based on the amount of applause that I got from you guys today. Maybe a future edition. I don't see any better way to make that decision, but anyway. But I did create an OK art generator game, which we'll get to. So basically, I'm still going to be mining you for ideas and just projects that I can do in the future. So I'm getting what I need from this experience. But with that, I feel we could get into guests. So, right, yeah. Woo. So my first guest is a well-known figure in Indianapolis and beyond. His art is shared widely on both Instagram and in the world beyond it. No, Nat Russell is a delightful gentleman and a supportive person as well as an inspirational figure. So yeah, just welcome Nat Russell, please.
Hey Erin, how's it going?
Great. We can shout out our NPR voices for this video.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Hot mic. No. Thanks for joining me, Nat.
Thanks for inviting me. This is a wonderful program.
Thank you. I did want to bring your attention to the secular Christmas holiday dressing that the stage has received this evening. So if you want to help yourself to any sort of nuts, that's
It's hard to crack a nut while you're holding a mic, I found.
right. It's not the best one yet.
Maybe if you're like a really long question later.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to begin, as I began many of my interviews, by kind of asking you for context for how we know each other, or because that I feel like that can be kind of wildly subjective.
Yeah, no, it's true. I remember the night I met you.
Oh.
It was 2000. Yes. It was 2009. I just moved back to Indiana, and there was an art show at Casey's studio. I don't know if it was called Mount Comfort then. Was it?
I think it's always been. Well, no, that's not true.
But it was over as like state in English, maybe. It's a group show.
Mount Comfort, yeah.
But there was a like Instagram, there was like a blogosphere, which I was a part of. I had a blog spot. I know you did too, because I think we communicated before I moved back via blog comment. And we met in person. I was like, hey, it's you. And you're like, hey, it's me. And then now here we are, like 8 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the blogosphere has continued, and so have we.
Yeah, we've really done it.
You theorize that multiple kind of relationships that ended up being significant kind of came out of that blog in particular?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No.
Which was called Crooked Arm, right?
Yeah, so I had a pre-Facebook social media, internet. I really wanted a website so I could show people my art on the internet, but you had to learn how to code things, or you had to learn Dreamweaver. And I didn't want to do that. But you could get a blog spot for free, and you could upload. It was like a cheap website, upload my images, and then for me personally, it became like this daily sort of thing where I'd just post a photo and do some writing, or post a drawing and do some writing, and like it was so great for me personally. It was like a sketchbook, but casual, but sometimes that's my favorite stuff, the stuff that you're not trying to show people or trying to work on that much. And then I get comments. I was like, who's this person commenting from like Delaware or something, you know? But then, you know, I don't think I ever had many followers, like 100, 150 or something like that. But back then that was major. I was like 150 people like listening to me right now. This is amazing. And but I made a lot of friends through that, and I met you, and now here I am on your talk show.
It is funny and sort of specific to a certain time period to think about how, you know, blogs were kind of important, or even Blogspot, just for that, you know, that was a place that, you know, working relationships like often grew out of, or just, yeah, I guess kind of the level of seriousness with which you take, you know, that project, like, it seems like it, you know, it could go a lot of different ways, and, you know, some of them meaningful.
Yeah, and I feel guilty now that I don't do my blog anymore. Like, I remember before Instagram and Facebook and stuff, like if I took a few days off, sometimes someone would be like, "What's up, dude? Like, what's going on? Why aren't you posting anything?" You know? And if you go back and look at it now, there's probably like 4 posts for the past 5 years, and each one says, "I swear to God, I'm gonna get back into this. I'm totally gonna get back into it," and I want to.
Right.
But my life is such now that like, or there's other outlets, I guess. You know?
I use mine as an important exercise in sort of like dodging schoolwork. So,
For sure.
which is the
For sure.
best
This is work.
time
you
to get
know?
things done.
Like,
Exactly.
so,
It's like,
I
well, I
mean,
have to update my blog.
Yeah,
Like,
this is work. I get gigs from this, man. Like, I have to post this picture of a dog.
right. And I was curious just sort of how, you know, I mentioned Instagram in your introduction here, but how that's sort of been a significant part of your practice, and how it has informed your practice these days.
I mean, I think in the same way that the blog was just like a motivator, like, this is something I can do and put out there, and it's done, and it's tangible, and someone else can look at it. You know, it's like a assignment for the day to do it. But it's changed so much. Like, when I first got it, I was just getting ready to go on like a cross-country drive, and I was like, oh, this is a way I could show pictures of all this stuff. But now it's become this thing where, I don't know, I look at art on there. I see so much art on there that people post every day, and I know some of my favorite artists post stuff every day on there that I would never see in person or ever see anywhere else. And as a person who makes things to show to people, it's like, I mean, you can, someone in, you know, Brazil, or I don't know, another country can check it out every day. I don't know. It's corny, you know, and it's so stupid, but it's kind of amazing, and
Right.
it's cool.
It's reflexive, sort of, and there's kind of room for it to be unpolished. So, like you said, it is, you know, often work that you wouldn't see, you know, an artist post on their, you know, website or show. So it does seem to have more intimacy or something,
Yeah,
or sort of immediacy.
Exactly, and I think it I don't know, like for me personally, it's like, oh, am I gonna put, here's a picture of this print that I spent hours on, or I thought a lot about, and the very next thing is like, I don't know, a picture of my kid's foot or something, you know? And I think that as a window, like, I really appreciate that, you know? Like, I feel like my goal, or like what I get out of art from people, is like connection to another human being. And when I see a picture of my favorite artist's kid's foot, I get stoked, you know? I'm like, we're all in this together, you know, and your kid has a foot.
But do you still kind of continue to think of it as a daily exercise?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if that's a thing, like Instagram, like guilt or something. Insta-guilt, coining it, TM.
Sure, yeah.
We're just like, oh, I haven't done it, I got
Syndrome forthcoming.
Yeah, exactly.
So something I identified about most of the guests, about all the guests this evening, is that they share a relationship kind of or they hold text to be an important part of their pieces, and you're certainly no exception to this. So I'm sort of interested in hearing you talk about the importance of text in art and how you've come to that, how you sort of use that to build images, particularly in talking about motivational posters you've made over time.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah. No, I mean, text, I think I fought against it for a long time because so much of the art that I like has text in it, and to maybe fight, I couldn't get that influence or that picture out of my head, so I felt like I was a copycat, or like the influence was too much or something. But then words are important. Like, I read a lot, lyrics to music, like it's heavy and it's really, really important, and there's a way to write just like there's a way you can draw, and everyone says things differently, and things really affect me. So but I'd never consider, I mean, I'm not going to write a book, you know? I don't know, maybe I will. But like, you know, but I've tried, like, I like the way certain words sound, and if you look at my sketchbook now, 80% just words and lists of like shit to do, or a song lyric, or titles, you know. So oftentimes it's titles come first, and then I make a picture about it, you know. But specifically what we were talking about, I think, was the motivational poster, and I was talking about, I had this whole series of prints that I call promotional posters for the present moment, right? And they're definitely inspired by these like headshot posters and like inspirational posters, you know. And
Hang in there, kitty.
yeah, exactly, hang in there.
Friday's coming.
Yeah, you got it. And I think what we talked about specifically was like, I get some people who are into those that I'm very grateful for because it shows that connection and stuff, but they come to me like I know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean? When so often I'm just angry and mad, like I'm angry all the time, I'm frustrated every day, you know, and I'm bummed, and I'm also happy and all that. So these posters for me, it's not like, hey, check this out, brother, this is how you should be. It's like, it's a sign to myself. It's like, dude, you need to just remember what's important, and try to be better, you know, because you are not better, you know, in a roundabout way. But like coming to text, like it's this whole maze, you know, that I'm still not sold on it, but like words just mean a lot, you know. I can't tell you how many times I've just been like looking out the window, like listening to a song, and just the repetition of those words is just incredible, you know.
I feel like text has been kind of like a starting point for me a lot of times, where it's just like, if I don't know what to draw, you know, literally write like, what do I draw, you know, and then just in more intricately, you know, curly cueing text or something, and so then it's just like, you know.
Yeah, and letters look great. Like letters are fun, you know, they're amazing, you know. And some of my favorite artists have painted letters that I don't even see the words, you know. It's just beautiful shapes and brush strokes, and letters look great, you know, they're fantastic.
It's sort of just like maybe like a fun mental exercise. Just think about, what am I writing, what am I drawing, what am I drawing the letters.
Myself.
Right, yeah. What am I doing with myself?
Exactly,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of, you know, sort of things that you look at, people that you don't want to sort of mimic, or you know, where you have that voice loud in your head, and you want to take pains not to reproduce it, but to sort of find your own voice through it. I was thinking that I was gonna take the Mark Maron kind of tact and ask you who your guys were.
I got some guys.
Yeah.
I got some guys.
Who are your guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. I mean, I think everyone gets stoked on making things because they see something that really affects them, you know what I mean? But like, no one wants to write a song and sound just like Neil Young, you know, because but that's what you want, like, but you want to affect someone like Neil Young, so you do that as an example. It's difficult, you know, but I have a lot of guys. I feel like for me, everything's based in drawing. Like, it all comes back to drawing as like a basic, like primitive human thing to do, you know, the mark making and everything. So when I was in school, I was really into printmaking, and I got really into like the German expressionists. Like, we talked about drawing hands a lot, you know, and like Kathy Kollwitz was this She's an artist who did the most intense, savage, heartbreaking hands you'll ever see in your entire life. And like, you know, George Gross and like Kirchner and all these like German heavy, we went through World War I, gnarly times, you know? And then the drawing stuff got really into like Robert Crumb and people sort of that ilk where they were drawing like, I'm not gonna like go too far afield here,
Right.
but like so much of the stuff that I grew up like being kind of into and like trying to draw and wasn't good at was like stuff that looked badass, like badass art, like check out this cool car and check out this person looks really cool. So when I started discovering all these people that were drawing stuff that looked kind of fucked up and like stuff that was weird, like the German people, like the German expressionists and like people like Robert Crumb, like that got me really psyched because you could draw weird and ugly and I don't know. And from then I got more into printmaking stuff and my sister Karita Kent, she's a printmaker. She's insane. She's amazing. Just really powerful. I really like people that have like powerful life stories to go along with their stuff. It's like, oh, I made a picture, but I also lived this shit and like struggled, you know. Talking about letters, I'm not going to go too far here, but you know, obviously a big one for me was Margaret Kilgallen. She's amazing, and like the way that she used words and letters. Half the time you can't even read the word, or it's like a snippet of a sentence or something like that, you know? So it really is about the way that she drew the letters. Oh man, Mershon,
Yeah.
hands,
Just,
you know?
I think it would be good to sort of just have a glossary of hands. Just
Right?
Like who are
There's a lot of good
who
hands.
do a lot just with the hands.
There's a lot of good hands.
Just make it the best.
Yeah.
And I did tell you promptly after talking to you, I listened to a podcast that was about Mershon's protest work and particularly how it was reused as protest signage, his hands. So I thought that was interesting because a lot of your work has been sort of used in those contexts, in
Yeah.
protest contexts.
I
And
think there's something heavy about a hand, right?
relatability, I guess.
Yeah, they mean a lot, you know?
Right.
And I don't know, people get on me on Instagram like, this person drew hands. What's up with that? You draw hands. I'm like, yeah, a lot of people draw hands because they're awesome and they mean so much and they're heavy and no one owns a hand, you know, and everyone's going to draw them differently and like, it's, you know, Instagram makes everything like every artist has a brand or like want to get in fights or whatever. I don't know, but I don't know. A couple more guys. Can I get a couple more guys
Yeah,
before we stop?
give me a couple guys. I like it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like we talked about writing and words and text and stuff. A couple of my guys were like they're on the writing tip, you know, like Richard Browdigan, like the way that he like wrote poems and things. I was trying to. It just goes along with like the badass art. Like I don't feel like a badass, so I'm not attracted like badass art, you know. And the same thing with like people like Kurt Vonnegut and Richard Browdigan and you know the way Kyle Field writes lyrics and stuff is it's not like a graceful like badass gazelle jumping through a forest. It's like a camel on the porch kinda, but it's like it's a beautiful thing, you know, and it's real and it's human and it exposes this like really relatable awkward beauty of being alive, you know, and like there's this Kurt Vonnegut book called Bluebeard. I don't know if you know, it's like it's good, right? It's about an artist, which of course I love it, and it was about this fake abstract expressionist artist. And I after I read it again later, I kind of felt like Kurt Vonnegut was kind of like making fun of abstract expressionist artists, you know. Mm-hmm. But there's this thing at the end of it that I always remembered where he's working on this famous abstract expressionist, right? He's famous for these big color-filled paintings with like tape on it, just like one little piece of tape, like really minimal, and they all fall off eventually because he used the wrong kind of tape or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, he's also this master illustrator, right? So he's been working on this painting for years of his life, of this like incredibly photorealistic painting where you can see like the whites of everyone's eyes, and it's this massive thing as big as his palm. And there's this woman who's showing the painting, and she's like, "You can do this? Why don't you do this all the time? Like, why are you making these color-filled paintings with tape and shit? Why don't you do this? This is amazing." And he's like, "You're looking at a guy with options. whatever, you know? And to me, that was but that was fucking heavy, right? I was like, fuck yeah, like, you don't have to make everything badass, you know? I think rereading it later, I was like, oh, I think Kurt Vonnegut was actually saying you should be badass. But like,
Why would you? Why would the yeah.
Yeah, but I think about it now, and I'm like, you just need to get at what the real shit is. You know? I'm sorry if it's a tangent, but
No.
when you asked me about my guy, you were like, I might be asking about your guys. I was like, oh shit, and I made like a list of 400 people. But that was
we really parsed it.
that was the one where I was like, I've been thinking about that since like 1997.
Good. No, I feel I feel the copies of Bluebeard flying off the shelf. But
There's a really good cover with boots on it that I've never seen. So if you see that one, hit me up.
I feel like the last question I really wanted to ask you was, so when you make objects, you often you've delved into the world of fake books, and and kind of objects that simulate the look of things that they're not. That's big. But I guess my question with almost any artist is just like, what needs to be made and what can just exist as a concept. Like,
I think that's why I make those like the fake books.
Right.
You know, like
you don't need to write.
I don't need to read that shit.
That entire
but
book.
like, I'm so glad that it exists, and that specifically comes from when I lived in California. I lived in Berkeley. I was super broke, and but at the time, Berkeley had like so many used bookstores. It was fantastic because like all the people that sold their paperbacks in Berkeley were like old hippies and people that lived in Berkeley for 50 years or something. So there's just this, it was a gold mine, right? So I would just be looking through like the New Age sections or whatever, and there's just, oh, here's a book. Someone out there spent a couple years of their life writing a book about like why dolphins communicate with the aliens the way they do, like, and there's like 4 of them, and like I don't need to know it, but I'm so glad that I know it's there if I ever need it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when I make
you don't need to delve deeper into that object
Exactly.
beyond its title,
Yeah.
maybe, or
Yet.
Yeah.
But it's like that's where the fake books come from. Like, I'd love to see this title, just to know that it's there, just to know that someone on Earth has that knowledge. Like, done. That's what that is. Also, I wish I knew that stuff.
Right. I think just even beyond fake books, though, like, how do you decide what gets the full, what are you going to address with the fullness of your attention, and what can just continue to be a concept? That's the thing. Like, and right now I feel like we're confronted with that every day, like on our feed or whatever. Like, I'm gonna block that. Don't have room for that right now. Or there's only so much space. You know what I mean? That we can really give anything. I don't know. I think we're reaching like peak knowledge. Like how much can one person stand? Right. Sometimes it's okay just for something to exist in concept.
I don't need to know about that.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's there.
I guess just to this point, I wanted to introduce this game that I want to work on this evening, and I wonder if you could help me come up with fill in a few blanks here.
Sure.
It's going to be an art object generator. So thank you, Duncan. Could you hand that to us?
Thank you, Duncan.
All right. Okay. So and then there's a couple of markers over there.
Oh shit.
Okay, so I think this is a pretty good formula for coming up with an art object that you don't need to make, but you could.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just have the ideas out there, just in case you run out, which maybe you won't, maybe you never will.
Maybe later tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a couple columns. One of them is for like highbrow form, and then this one is art action. So it's like what you're going to do to the thing, and then and the third one is lowbrow material. So for instance, an obelisk would be an example of a highbrow material, and then it could be woven from Flintstone vitamins.
Oh,
So
okay.
you ever think about that? I think about that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I've got the bank is we're filling it out, but if any
So I would draw a line. Is that what we're talking about?
we could do that, or you
would I-
could first. I think I'm going to work on filling out the columns.
Okay.
So either a highbrow form, an art action that you could perform on that object, or sort of a treatment, and then like a lowbrow material.
So I need to come up with each of those?
Yeah, if you'd like to, or if there are any that just spring to mind.
A highbrow form.
Yeah.
Wow.
So so far we've got
sculpture.
obelisk, marble sculpture, like a Calder style mobile, a bust of a Civil War general.
What about a fresco?
Ooh, perfect.
Do a fresco?
This is why, yeah. Very good. Very
You
good.
read it or you got it?
Would you?
Yeah, of course. And then we're talking about an art action?
Yeah, here, just fresco first.
Or is someone else doing it? I'll just do fresco.
Okay. That's excellent.
There we go.
How about a lowbrow material?
A lowbrow material?
Yeah.
What do we got so far?
I think almond butter's in there.
Stadium seating from Victory Field. The names of everyone I've ever. Oh, this is good.
My unreturned text messages.
Oh shit.
It's one of the materials.
Oh man.
There's a lot of possibilities.
It's so heavy.
I'm putting you on the spot.
How about cat hair?
Very good. It's to everything.
While we're writing that, can I
Would you
tell a
mind?
story about
Please,
cat hair?
By all means.
I worked at this printmaking center one time, and there was a woman who worked in the, she was like in the grants department, and she was always super nice to me, like one of the only people that was ever nice to me, and she took me to this really cool restaurant down the road, and she gave me a postcard for her art opening. I was like, oh, you make art? I didn't know that. She's like, oh yeah, come check it out. And I went, and it was like insane sculptures of dogs, life size, made of her dog's hair. It was awesome. She's still practicing. Her name is Lauren Davies. Check her out. She's amazing. I think she lives in Virginia now. But it sounds corny, but they were like weird, like art brute stuff. It was awesome. And
Cool. Your guides. Yeah. I mean,
she's my guy.
Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you, Aaron. I think you're doing good work here, and I wish you all the success in next season.
Thank you. You should sign up for my newsletter.
I will. Sign up for that newsletter. Thank you.
We did it. Oh, but it's not over. No. There's another. So my next guest is a writer, a performer, conceptual artist, living and working in Bloomington, Indiana. Please welcome A. Bowden. Yes.
I don't have to sit like this the whole time.
Would you prefer to?
I probably could do it.
I mean, it's, whatever iteration, whatever you need to do.
This is a trip.
How you feeling? I mean,
it's a trip. It's kind of weird.
yeah.
But thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this object.
Yeah.
So I did want you to introduce context for how maybe the first time I saw your work, and then kind of give me a follow-up on where you're at with that project, because I get the impression this comes from it.
Yes, it actually does. We met at a Monster House Press reading thing. I did an installation for it, and I did a Death Myth series, and that was 2 of 3, where I did this thing where I was an artist from the 90s that moved to Poland. And that was just it. And the third one was me dead at that point, and then people like channeling my spirit to communicate to me now, just random stuff. And so I made that object. It doesn't sound very complete, but I'm summing it up.
Yeah.
So that's the
You're
object.
boiling it down because you're also a writer.
I'm like, I know it. I already did it.
You've condensed it.
Yeah.
You were at the second installment in the Death Myth
Yeah.
show. You were also giving away paintings that you had
Yeah.
made at that event,
Yeah.
and that. Can you talk about that?
I just didn't want to have my own personal work anymore, so I felt to like further the concept of like being dead or like transcending myself to be this artist from the 90s. I would just give my personal work away for free, and that's what I did.
Were you able to part with most of it?
Yeah, I have like 3 left, so I did pretty good. I cleaned house,
Yeah.
so I don't have to look at them anymore.
I feel like when we got together the other day, we were talking about sort of the ends of projects and and also just sort of creating restrictions around performance in particular. And you were kind of talking about using personas as like a helpful way
Yeah.
to kind of create those restrictions.
Yeah,
So
if I can remember what I said.
you don't even have to say what you said.
Just go back into
Yeah.
my hive and remember. I just love personas because I feel like they give me like the freedom to just randomly do things within like a personality that I wouldn't normally take on myself. Like if I was like really a jerk or something, like I don't feel like I could do that comfortably myself. So I just create a persona that is just really evil or just really it's not nice person. And I felt like the performer, the concept that I chose for Death Myth, the performer like was just not a good person, like very Heaven's Gate-ish, like toward human bodies, and very transhumanist or whatever you call that, and just very entitled to other people's space. And yeah, I would never do that personally. So yeah, the restriction is through persona, so I do that stuff.
And you said that people sort of seem to be confused about kind of where those lines blur between yourself and your persona.
Yeah, and also now, like after my final performance thing, like I like playing with that idea now. Like on Instagram, I'm like, oh, I'm on Putty tonight as my real self, actually. Or I'm like, oh, new concept, like me not being whatever traits I don't like about myself. And yeah, people just are very confused, I think, when you're an artist that does persona work. And then you're like, oh, I'm me now. Then they're like, oh, no, there's like no end to that. Like you're always going to be doing a concept. And like now I can't trust you to be yourself. So I just assume you're in a state constantly.
I feel like people think artists are trying to pull the wool over their eyes all the time anyway. So to sort of play with that expectation, I don't know, is that something that's interesting to you, or that's sort of a statement, but
I mean, now I think I've just like learned how to live with it, so I just make fun of myself doing things. Because I know that's kind of like ridiculous to be like, oh, I'm being this person today, like you're not talking to me, but I am me. But you know, I'm not me actually. And then they have people who don't do that work try to get that. You're just like, no, you're just a weirdo. You're just doing something very weird to me. So yeah, I like playing with that and making fun of myself a lot.
Can you talk about some of the durational performance that you've done? For instance, you were talking about
the ones that have failed dramatic.
Oh, I think failure is very interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, I just like calling myself out also. I did a performance piece over the summer where I decided to try to make myself into an agency and not a person. So I wore a jumpsuit around everywhere, and I had like 2 jumpsuits, and they were just 2 separate colors. And I was like, well, I'm not a person, like I'm gonna represent a group, like a we. And yeah. And so I did that, and of course, like I wore a jumpsuit like in the middle of summer, and it was like very hot. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect time to do this project, of course. And then I stopped doing it like right when it started cooling off, and yeah, I don't know what I was thinking or doing at that point, but it failed.
Yeah, no, I am really interested in how you know when a piece succeeds or when it fails.
Yeah. I think like we've talked like briefly about like Bruce Nauman a lot, and I really appreciate that he knows like, or at least I assume he knows like a piece succeeds when he's happy with it, or like when he's gets some kind of like entertainment out of it. So I think when I make myself laugh like in the middle of a piece, or I realize like I'm doing something that's really stupid to me personally, and then other people take it like very seriously, I feel like it succeeds. Like when we just like miss the mark completely.
Does that sort of get into like the confounded relationship with an audience, or I sort of the maybe even contentious relationship with an audience where how their view of your piece's success versus your own?
I don't really know. Like, I don't really pay that much attention to audience. It's just kind of nice afterwards to have people come up and be like, oh, like this meant this to me, and I'm like, oh, well, it meant that to me like 3 months ago, but I've been done with it for about like a year. So now that's great that you've caught up to me or like where I'm at, but it's kind of funny.
Can you think of any good feedback you've received or any surprising feedback you've received recently?
I guess it was like the feedback I got from the final Death Myth performance, where people like did not engage with me in the space after I was like trying to convince them that it was over. Like one person refused to like leave the space at all, and they were like writing down stuff about like me and my friend John were doing the performance together, and like 2 other people, and like they were convinced that the whole time that we remained there, like we were still performing, and so we just kind of we didn't know what to do. So the feedback was like they thought it was like really significant and like progressive, and we're like, we were done like half an hour ago, and now we like kind of continued it for you. So
I'm definitely interested in those sort of boundaries also, just and maybe just that lack of clarity even between the audience and yourself.
But then I don't give them clarity that much either, so I think it's kind of, I just kind of go with it. I'm like, oh, you're right, like it's not done. So I just came back and I read again, like the performance thing. I did it again, but like a low budget kind of style. Like we just ran through it really quickly, and I just kept going, and we kept like manipulating the space according to how this person probably would perceive us to continue on post performance, but still within a performance. And it was just kind of fun to continue and do that.
So kind of in talking about quantitative success within performance, you were also talking about, or I guess we were talking about the broader conversation of how you pay a performance artist, or just what does it even mean?
What a concept.
To attempt to monetize that and to monetize that sort of labor, because it would involve valuing that sort of labor.
For sure.
So I'm interested in your thoughts around what would be a best case scenario, like what
I would want ideally.
Well, yeah.
I guess like a system that is like set up for artists to put in proposals of like work that they feel is significant to their body or their history, and then for people who own spaces in towns to give the space to the artist for free, and then do tickets for people to come in, because at that point when you breach like the threshold of like the gallery into the performance space, I feel like that's the monetary value right there. Like it's not about if you're entertained or not, it's about you coming in and engaging in this space that someone cultivates for a very long time. So you need to, contribute.
That's a very practical and sort of materialist response to that exact question. So
wow, I said something that made sense. Cool.
Now how are we gonna implement it?
Oh no. Like I've been trying to do that in Bloomington with very small success level because I think people are worried about breaking even, or just kind of worried about using their spaces like in 2 ways, like 1 as a gallery and 2 as a performance space. Like they automatically are revealing that they don't see performance as significant enough to be involved in a gallery system. So it's like, how do you even correct that kind of thought process, or like kind of be like, oh, but there's more. You can do other things within this like sphere of, creativity.
Are there any sort of spaces that you look to optimistically, like, beyond Bloomington, beyond,
Beyond
Indiana,
Bloomington, like
right?
where I would like to perform or something?
Or just where you've seen kind of that value be placed on performance, or that, sort of positive changes be implemented in the service of advocating for artists?
I've seen like a lot of the famous or like high tier galleries do performance stuff, but I feel like they exploit the body a lot, or they'll have people of color come in and do a performance, and they'll get money because it's like, oh, we're progressive, we're doing this cool thing. So like really like not, there's no space that's really doing anything to benefit anybody right now. So
I guess you and I had talked about working artists in the greater economy or wage as kind of offering, just for instance, a rubric, just kind of a breakdown of what would be kind of equitable pay for a performance situation. But then it does assume that there won't be, what you say, this
exploitation, like profit margin thing. It's very hard to work around. Even in like, it's very hard.
Right. I mean, there's just so much cultural skepticism anyway. So.
I'm very skeptical. No hope whatsoever.
I'm just excited to shift more solidly into mostly having performance artists on the show. So
thank you for having me and thinking that I do those things.
So I am interested in talking to you about public art and sort of, so public art obviously is a complicated...
I didn't mean to just crack up instantly. I apologize.
Public art is a complicated notion, and I'm interested in talking about best case scenario public art. So for instance, I would say that maybe this is an example of public art that we're engaging in right now.
Yes,
but
I agree.
There are other definitions that are out there. So I'm wondering, I think you and I spent a while just sort of like giggling at
and I'm continuing to do it.
at maybe manifestations of that, in Bloomington and beyond, just sort of materials that are used, kind of people's go-tos when they think about public art as being like a big red metal, corten steel, like
something
sculpture.
very physically oppressive.
Right.
Or like something that's used to like divert the eye away from practices of like a city that take away, I guess, the city from the people. Like just visual distractions, I think it's like the definition of public art right now.
So
cover-ups and things like that.
Rock garage.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Guitar that like
everyone knows I hate
like
that thing.
Right. I mean, that's it's comedy. Like,
well, it's like, why would you put that there? Like, why would you? Bloomington's not like Miami or something. Like, there's no point of you having like a touristy kind of art object hanging off the side of a garage.
Is bad art better than no art?
I don't think so.
Cool.
I think it's like you do people a kindness if you don't like make them have to live within like these very oppressive visuals like areas. So don't do that at all. That's a violence at that point.
So to return to my question, is there a best case scenario for public art?
No. Unless it includes like the body and like takes into consideration people that live in the spaces, then no, not at all.
I kind of want to float out to you the same question that I floated out to Nat, which is what objects or what art needs to exist and what is okay just to sort of stay as concept, and how do you approach that?
I kind of like believe in intention more as an object than form as an object or like anything physical. And like I said, like I feel like material art is kind of like not a huge kindness to people that have to like live in the spaces where they're made. So I think that's why I do performance work, because I feel like it's like me trying to understand a level of like tenderness according to a process, or like me having to work within, I guess, like materialistic or like money kind of things. Like, yeah. So I just don't like making things, physical things.
I also don't like things, but
I think we talked about that too.
Yeah.
Like I just got a studio space where I've just randomly started doing like small sculptural pieces, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like I'm just using the space. Like, yeah.
On the other hand, I'm obsessed with things, but and I like this thing, but
That's why I gave them away. I'm like, I don't need this thing anymore.
right. This is for someone else to figure out what
exactly,
its future
exactly,
is.
Yeah.
So with our mutual disdain for for objects, would you like to help me round out this game I've been working on?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
excited.
cool. Good.
Happy birthday, Bruce Malman.
Yeah, I feel like he would into this maybe. Thanks, John.
I like the assistant. Is that a free space?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of free
I'm
space.
sorry.
Oh no, it's just
I zoned out completely.
This is the fresco. Fresca. Okay, so
Great.
first column is highbrow form.
Yes.
Second is art action or thing, way the thing could be acted
Yes.
on, and third is lowbrow material. So any jumping to mind here?
The Calder
Mhm.
style
Mhm.
thing. I just think that's really funny.
Could be a stable. I don't know.
Yeah, like a very infant-like thing.
But
Smeared with, I like that. I really like that a lot.
so, what would you smear your Calder style?
I have to pick a
with?
thing to smear it
You
with?
could,
Oh.
or you can add to the columns. I mean, we could play the game a lot of different ways.
I think I would just smear it with garbage. The overflow of the recycling thing at Bloomington. I think I'd smear it with that.
Do you have any highbrow forms or anything that you would like to round out this list with?
Eyebrow. Not anything that I can say without like getting in trouble. I'm
Okay.
living past it, so I will not say anything.
Okay.
I won't add to it.
We're for yeah.
I don't know. I'm tempted.
I
I don't
mean-
know if it's highbrow though.
Wait on me.
I want to say like I don't know. I just hate on Bloomington constantly. But I want to say like the Bloomington apartments.
Okay.
Is that highbrow or lowbrow or art action? Like the rapidly expanding.
We could do. I think they could be
Thing.
in the highbrow column, and then we could figure out how
Or
to
just
how to round
CBS.
them
I think
CBS,
CBS is
okay.
highbrow. Can we say CBS?
up. Yeah, please. Here.
Do I just sit this down, or is that gonna
Do you think anything bad will happen?
Hang on, I'm gonna rate some.
Just wherever you think it belongs.
That's nicer to put, I think.
I'll just hold it directly.
Why would I hold
This-
it like
I'm gonna take my time.
Please. Cool. Anything to toss into the lowbrow category, materials wise?
oil paint?
Okay. Okay.
I just have a vendetta against paint also. And then you want me to add an art action?
If you'd like to, yeah. I think this is a public service. Like, I mean, this is out there. Like, you know, this content's available if you ever feel stuck.
I put becoming from.
Perfect.
Even though those are the two of the same thing. Is that it?
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to is there anything that you're doing soon that you're excited about?
Trying not to make anything. I'm
Cool.
very excited about
Wow, I salute you in your endeavor.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. We'll take a short break and then we'll be back.
Kids, teens, adults all like it.
Adults don't all like it. Hi guys, welcome back to Putty. So it's at this time in the show that we like to do our cultural arts calendar, and I have a special cultural correspondent here today, Duncan Kissinger.
Hello.
And he's going to join us for the holiday edition of our calendar we call What Do We Do? So Duncan, you know, it's the it's a time of year some people like.
It is. There's always a time for some people, and it makes no sense to me.
What could we expect to get into out there?
Well, every Sunday in December at the Indianapolis Zoo, they're having a event. It's called Put a Wreath Around a Cheetah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Just that simple. So this year, in addition to its Winter Lights Festival, Newfields is hosting Spill Eggnog on the Art Night. So just past the cacti and all the lawn sports, there's still a permanent collection, and it's just $18 to get in, and
Pocket change.
bring your own eggnog.
No, that sounds like a lot of fun. What I'm looking forward to specifically is on Tuesday, December 18th. ND Reads Books is hosting a panel on censoring problematic Christmas carols. This will be followed by a sing-along on Mass Ave, which ends at Five Irish Brothers. That'll be fun.
This year, consider hosting your company holiday party at White Pines Wilderness Academy. So they're offering full catering services, including kombucha, a snake jerky spread, and small pieces of bark that you can suck the sap from.
Sounds fun. No, that sounds great. Also, we've got an exclusive renters-only sleigh ride for Woodruff Place residents, in which you can dash by all of the couches you stayed on while you got back on your feet. This will all culminate in a shoes-only skating in the fountain on East Drive. It's a raucous and confrontational new classic. What fun, what fun.
The Survival Expo, the Prepper Fair, is happening this weekend at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. So this is a great opportunity to get the prepper in your life some essential stocking stuffers.
Oh, such as water bottles, batteries, medical supplies,
Cyanide capsules, holiday-themed MREs,
candy canes that double as hunting knives,
a fleshlight that's also a flashlight.
or a big mouth Billy Bass that's just Alex Jones rambling about gay frogs.
I'm really looking forward to that one.
What a beautiful season.
Well, I can't wait to see you out there at most of these cultural events.
Oh, yes.
And
of
thank you so
course.
much for joining us for our calendar. What do we do? Hi guys. Hi. Let's do some interviews. Okay. So our next artist is a sometime educator, a full-time scholar. He paints walls white all day so that he can make edited videos of distorted bodies of Olympic gymnasts, I think. Is Brian James Priest around and available? I do hope. Oh, good. Hi, welcome to the stage. trying to step on all this.
I brought. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yay.
I brought you a gift last time I was here.
Oh, wow.
Someone brought you a gift, so I thought maybe that was tradition.
It's really very charming. Yeah. I'm not. Oh man! Wow.
So I couldn't decide. People say money or handmade gifts are the best, so I figured to make both. Just don't actually try to spin that.
It's actually funny that you brought me this because I collect fake money.
Oh, there you go.
And for
It's actually the best fake money real money can buy. So.
Thank you so much. I've actually had my students design fake money multiple times. And I mean, yeah, designing currency obviously is like, I mean, I think that's a goal, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to design their own currency, right?
Right. I don't see why not.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Brian. So I think some of your images may be on the screen.
Well, I'm on the screen.
We're up there. Just a smaller version of us. So you have a very omnivorous practice. I got to visit your studio the other day and saw, you know, the notebooks that you've been working on for decades, could we say?
20 years.
Yeah. You know, you make video, like I lightly touched on. You do make objects, but today I kind of wanted to especially spotlight your performance work and what kind of touches on text, because yeah, that seems to be a shared concern with a lot of the artists showing here this evening.
What art are we looking at?
Whoa.
I didn't
Oh. Doesn't matter, I'm sure.
Text, yes. I mean, I have text is usually used to describe the work because, I mean, all work kind of exists in the gallery when we show it, and for me, performance kind of happens outside of those art showing spaces. So sometimes text is there to kind of give a pretext to why they're there.
Maybe I should back it up really fast because so I appreciated you giving me this and also kind of lighting on the topic of collections, because when I was visiting you, you did also kind of docent me through some of your personal collections,
Right.
which I would ask you to outline, but also more broadly, do you like stuff?
I do love stuff. Shit, man. Yeah, I love stuff. I hate stuff. I mean, I really think that's, as artists, that's what we do. We just fucking move molecules around all day long. And so I like things. I don't like to make things, but I like to have things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think when you were there, you saw a lot of objects that I made, but I usually make objects so that they don't actually infiltrate my real art making. I like kind of get it out of me, so that way
Right.
I don't have a bunch of dumb shit hanging around.
I was trying to remember what this law, you know, this maxim or whatever is supposed to be, by the way, which is 90% of what you make is crap, and, you know, and it's Sturgeons Law.
Doing better than me, yeah.
Right. Sturgeons Law is the name for that, just this sort of idea that most of what you write or most of what you produce will be kind of tried or won't be top notch, but then there is the 10%
It's all
that,
terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is a failure ultimately, right? If you like, if the true test is to like change the world with our art, then I mean, none of my shit's really changed the world. Maybe I've affected people or they like something or whatever, but I ultimately think every day when I go to bed, like, shit, I failed today, right? So I kind of talk about Bruce Nauman, right? You know, he said like, I thought I could go to art school and learn how to make art, and then I would leave and make art for the rest of my life. He said, what I realized is every day I wake up, I have to re-figure out what the hell art is again. And I think that that's kind of like the true test of an artist, is to always be uncomfortable and always like go, what the fuck am I doing and why am I doing this? But that's the real, that's the joy of it, right?
So you often deliberately make yourself uncomfortable by placing
Absolutely.
yourself in unfamiliar environments and responding to them. And this has kind of taken the form of artcations?
Artcations
Yeah.
is what I call them,
Or
yes.
so work that you've done in other countries. And
Other countries and,
Yeah.
and around here. So yeah, I mean, I guess it started, all my work kind of centers around a place. I try to think about places that have really weird kind of conflations of things happening, or they're contentious places, or they're whatever. I just want to see what the hell they are. Places that have the highest degree of me to learn something. So, talking about mantras, my mantra is like I don't make art because I have something to say, but because I have something to learn. And so I find these places that I go to learn something. And so I usually spend 3 weeks to 4 weeks in a space before I have a show or an exhibition. And then I do volunteer work, I meet people, I do whatever I can to kind of like imbue myself into the social arrangements of a place. And then I start messing shit up.
So this summer you had the opportunity with the Arts Council continuing. What was the grant that you got? To go to Germany.
Oh, yeah, that was the renewal, creative renewal.
The creative renewal.
Sorry, creative renewal. Yes, I went back to Germany. I kind of went to. I spent some time in high school in Europe, and that's so it was kind of go back and trace old steps and find new things. But yeah, I went there and spent a few weeks just going crazy and everywhere, and I did like 30 performances over the month, pretty basically one a day. So yeah.
Kind of starting from the airport and beyond. So when you talk about the piece that you did at the airport.
So at the airport, so I knew I was flying into London, I knew I'd be flying back out. So the first time I went, I was like, just see what I want to do. And I saw these multi-faith rooms. Have you seen these places in the airport, like in Heathrow especially? There's these places where they're like every faith can go to celebrate their religion or have practice or whatever. So there's a box inside that has like rugs for Muslims. There's crystals for New Age religion. There's Mormon Bibles. There's like every religion has a little cubby, and then these rooms inside them. I was really interested in like, what is the basic architecture for a room of faith? Like that everyone would be cool with. It's basically an empty room with like a little arrow pointing east in the corner. So I went there and I met some fellow travelers, and there was this guy named Wasim, and I sat down with him and he was teaching me to do a prayer. And then there's this American, he comes around the corner, right, and there's a bathroom right there next to the prayer thing. And this guy is like, basically like, oh yeah, my own shitter, basically. So he goes in this room and I look at this guy and I'm like, oh crap, like of course, stereotypical American is doing this. And the next moment, this other guy that came in to worship a Muslim faith, he had his cell phone in his hand. He just like sat down, put his cell phone right down, and did his prayer looking at his phone, and then got up and walked off. And then Wasim looked at me like, oh shit, So we both laughed. Had a good laugh that we both have these stereotypes that But so when I went back, I noticed all these rugs. So I took a rug and left it in the stack, and then I repaired rugs that were broken in the stack, and then I stole a rug that had the most Western kind of perspective in the rug. And I love these rugs because thousands of people literally have been praying on them. They're like just thousands of prayers being pushed into these rugs. I like these kind of shared religious experiences, I guess, or places. I'm rambling, sorry.
No. But you repaired one, right?
I did repair one, yes. And I repaired it with thread that really highlighted, the repair job. I celebrated or unapologetically showed what I did, I guess.
So that was like the first day and the last day, kind of.
First day and last day. So that got me started. So the major performance I did there was I went to Germany and to Berlin, and there's a North Korean embassy there. And I was like, no shit, we don't have any of those, like you guys have one. So I ran to KB Toys, of all places, in Berlin, and I bought a basketball. And I saw back at the embassy there was a basketball goal behind the embassy, so they like basketball. So I just went and dribbled the basketball around the embassy, making sure everyone could see me. And at the very end, I take one big shot over the fence at the basketball goal. I missed it horribly. But it, obviously it looks like a missile, and it's this idea of just purely engagement and doing something that's fun, like Dennis Rodman was there. He went to North Korea. Right. So now I want to design North Korean basketball jerseys and see if I can get. Yeah. Anyways.
But that was more of a dramatic art action, and then.
Yeah, it was because the audience I couldn't actually see them because there's one-way mirror, so I know that there's workers watching me, but I can't actually see them, and I'm
Was
hoping
there
you're
any-
all just like, is he gonna make it? But,
Yeah, was there any reaction from like
I
people
couldn't
around
see
there?
anyone,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'm sure that they checked the footage because there's a random basketball sitting back there that they didn't own, so.
Right. And I'm sure you also did smaller things, like kind of over the course of this journey.
Yeah, I danced on the Berlin Wall in 90s dance, and did all kinds of things. I did amateur boxing, dressed as an American, and just got my ass beat totally, wearing the most ridiculous patriotic garb.
I really liked, you talked about a piece where you hired people to move around furniture, like.
Yeah, just moving people's trash around. When I first got there, I was like, I'm just gonna use trash that I find on the street, and there's no trash in Germany. There's not even a freaking broken sidewalk anywhere. Like, everything is fixed and clean, so I kind of had to produce trash and then have people move it around. But I got a lot. I did some volunteer work. Germany took in 1 million immigrants from Syria and Afghanistan. So I did some volunteer work cleaning out this apartment places that they were making room. So I got some objects from cleaning out these spaces for these families. And so I worked with that stuff.
Right. I'm interested in sort of returning to the conversation I was having with A, just about quantifying success, or just framing success, particularly when it comes to performance. Just when you feel a piece is successful, and
I'm never happy.
how you gauge that.
It's successful if I've learned something and I feel like I've had genuine engagement. One of my pet peeves is like interactive art. I'm like, no, they're just freaking doing some system that you set up. There's no actual way for them to change the system. It's not interactive. It's just reactive. So I guess I'm successful when there's something that I'm surprised by, that I'm not expecting. When I genuinely learn something or have a genuine kind of interaction with someone, that, like Wasim, who I talked about, I was not expecting this guy to be there to teach me his rituals and the way that he prays and all that. And that's something I can't necessarily translate. Helping that family out, I remember after we cleaned it out, they moved in, and there's this guy, and they had a family, there's 8 of them that lived in this one apartment. I was staying in the apartments across the street, and I was looking down, and all the family was in one room except for one little girl about 4 years old in the other room, and she was trying on all of her mother's headscarves. And I could see her, me and my friend Holger, who I was staying with, we were watching her, and she was then, after she tried one on, she put it on the ground, and she would just dance around them. And her mother, she has no idea what her mother did to get from Syria to there. I mean, how much work she took. And so, you see this girl seeing herself as a beautiful Muslim woman in a country that she doesn't know the language, doesn't know what's going on, but, she's there, she made it, and she'll have a better life for it. Working with that family and using some of their items in my project was successful to me because I got a chance to connect with that. There's kind of different layers of success, I guess.
Right.
And so I'm more interested in those personal ones than whether or not I get another show in China or something.
To kind of respond to what you were saying about systems and creating systems, that does seem to be something that you do in your work also. I feel like artists sort of love systems of their own creations and rules of their own creation. So I'm thinking in particularly about work that you've done, stateside, where the show, the fugitive piece that you did, or this show that was like all kind of made up of performances and mostly outlines and didactics, but.
I think all art is kind of absurd, and there's definitely an absurdity to my work, and the fugitive piece is definitely, sometimes I play games with my audience, they don't know what's happening, so with that work was at IMOCA, and I had made a whole bunch of work that was good enough to be seen in a museum but wasn't my actual artwork. It served as just purely distractions or something to get people there.
Should I clarify, IMOCA is the Indianapolis Museum of Contemporary Art? Yeah. People told me to do that.
It's been around a long time, but I had like a piece where I hired a fugitive there to come. So basically, everyone at the show was aiding and abetting a felon. So I like when works can implicate the viewer in ways that they don't quite know. And then I hired 10 actors to change the dialogue throughout the gallery, like say, oh, this work fucking sucks, and this is a bunch of bullshit, or one actor's thing was just get drunk as drunk as humanly possible and make a scene at some point.
Did they follow these instructions?
They did.
That
They
you know
did.
of? Yeah.
Yeah, they did. I mean, that's what I'd say my art a lot of times is constructed situations. I feel that you can transform more through actions than you can through objects. So there's something about dematerializing that kind of thing, that object, which then changes throughout history how it's interpreted. But an action kind of, once someone witnesses it or does it or they actually interact with you, that their body themselves has a new memory that takes that action on, which exists in a way that's better than if it was collected or shown in a book or on Instagram or something.
I'm definitely interested to return to kind of objects and impossible objects, because obviously that's part of your
Yeah.
pedagogy. But
It is.
You mentioned when I visited you the other day that before you went to Germany, you took 6 months off of art, and I meant to ask you about that.
Art making. I absolutely hate it.
I just wanted to know, like, yeah, how did that shape up? How do you turn it off? Just what does it look like when you turn it off?
I get very clear-headed for a while, and then I get kind of manicky, and I get back into it, I guess. I think what it is that I hate 95% of art making. It's the last 5% that I get a really big high or rush. I'm actually, even though I'm performance artist, I hate being in front of people, and even though I was a teacher, I hate being, I have kind of an anxiety about being in front of people. I think when I do performances, I throw up every time. I literally get sick to my stomach. I hate being in front of people. But it's a way that kind of triggers something in myself. So, yeah, I don't know.
But I guess, yeah, just the idea of being able to stop and then realizing that it's not really, I mean, the idea of being able to stop is sort of fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to take a break. I mean, otherwise, Germany was a lot for me, too. I put everything I had. When I do these art vacations, that they're literally like the entire month is one performance in some way. I don't stop. And then when I come home to Indy, I don't really have a studio. I don't like to make objects or sit around. I like to just sit and be a normal human being, hang out with my girlfriend, just do normal everyday shit. And then I'm going to, my next show is in New Orleans coming up. I'm going to go there and explode again. So I feel like if I do make art secretly every day, I think, but it's not like, I don't think of it as art or working towards something.
Is the show in New Orleans the Death Drive show?
Death Wish Summer.
Death Wish Summer, sorry.
Death Wish Summer.
That's the show that's in New
Showing
Orleans.
in winter, yes.
Do you want to talk about it?
No, I will say that it's the pleasure of doing a two-person show where some of the works will be with Lori Miles, who has been my mentor for 15 years. She is a professor at DePaul, and she is the most brilliant artist I know. And so it's me getting to do work with her is like, I'm uber excited.
Cool.
So
could we turn?
I'm gonna get in a car wreck for the show.
Oh right, yeah. No, do you want to tell us more? Yeah, you did say that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna get in a car wreck.
Sounds scary. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I had a guy draw blueprints to turn my studio into what it would look like if it was an abortion clinic. So I'm gonna have the blueprints for that, and there's a lot of strange. We're recreating the Jonestown great purple Kool-Aid container.
Right. You said Lori's sort of.
Yeah, that's Lori's work.
Yeah.
So I think we're playing with a lot of ideas of like it wanting to be shock, but it's really not, and how everyday items can kind of be more shocking. I mean, you slip in a bathtub, like the bathtub is like a murder weapon in a very weird sense. So I like that. Life is very absurd, and death is absurd. I mean, we basically live all day long trying to ignore it, that we're going to die. So. I think that's kind of be the crux of it. Funny, death is funny.
Death is funny. Yeah,
It's
everything's
funny.
funny.
I'm watching 6 Feet Under right now, which is
Gosh, yeah. So, in your teaching, which you no longer teach.
I'm done with teaching.
You created this directory of impossible ideas. Was it the prompt? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Impossible Directory, and which I'm sort of
I hate
borrowing.
that name.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sort of borrowing from it in the game that we're playing this
Oh.
evening. But could you just talk about what you've been developing with your
Sure.
students and
I'm sorry, I'm not as funny as the first guy. I developed a class called Impossible Art, and I really wanted this class. It frankly became, they were like, okay, you have to teach a winter and summer term, and you need a really catchy title or you won't get people to register for your class. And I'm broke as shit, because if you don't know anything about adjunct professors, but I made $23,000 a year teaching 5 classes a semester. It's a horrible life. If I hear another student say they want to teach when they graduate, I'm going, I don't know.
probably some adjuncts
yeah,
amongst
please.
the ranks here?
Well, maybe you get paid more, I don't know.
To
but-
clarify, you paint walls now, but
I do. I have a business where I paint nursing homes white all day long. It's a niche business, and I love it. By the way. So, I had this impossible art class, and so I was like, "What sounds crazy? How about impossible art?" I really had no idea what the hell the class was going to be about, and then so I had a semester to figure it out, and it actually really worked out. I guess I was so pissed that art school is always about teaching people on limitations. You have 2 weeks, you have $50, you have to get through this door frame. Your teacher has to like it or be able to converse with you. So I feel like
the wire shoe or
right, take 1,000 of this and make this,
yeah.
which is classic art. So I guess what I wanted is to I wanted them. Tell me art, and you're talking about the concept form. I wanted art that could really only exist as words in concept, could never really be materialized. So I asked students to give me a list of 100 impossible art ideas. And it's like, everything from like full body tattoo for Vladimir Putin or, and a lot of them, and what I realized was that actually humans are not very imaginative. And actually, especially art students, because I taught this class to non-art students, and they were way better. I don't know what it is. So I found out that there's basically 7 archetypes for impossible ideas, like a quantity versus like 1,000, every photograph of every human on place and know it, or know every lyric of every song, or whatever. So it's always that kind of stuff. So I started realizing that I wanted to make kind of a resource and a book for everyone to see how imagination works and see how we come up with impossible ideas, because they have to be attached to something. You talk about language, you can't just come up with some impossible abstract idea, right? It's like, oh, it's so beautiful, I can't eat my food, right? But you can't transfer that over to anyone, so.
it's a closed set.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
That's a work in progress, though.
It is. It's becoming exponentially harder to get original ideas, right?
Right.
So everyone's list is like time travel, right? And there's variations: time travel, punch your grandmama; time travel, punch yourself; time travel.
Smother Hitler to death with your food.
Smother Hitler with a pillow, whatever. Never got on this. So a lot of my artwork then is going back and then re-editing people's ideas. And so I've been working on this book for 4 years. So eventually I want to try and publish it with like thousands and thousands of ideas and whatever. You can see some on my website. So it's a culmination of a lot of artists. So it's a collaboration in a different form for me, which I like.
Do you want to try to fill out this bank for this game that we've been doing?
Absolutely.
Oh, Casey's here to help.
Yeah. Since I inspired it, I'm going to be the worst one at it.
You're in there. So do you feel, we're still fleshing this out.
I give a form of this to my performance class. We have a piece called Random Act of Art, like a random act of kindness kind of idea. And I give them a thing, and it's like a space, a mode of operation.
Okay,
is what
mode
I
of
call
operation might
it,
be.
for art action, and then a material that you add.
Okay.
And it's like a quick generator to get them moving, and I feel dirty every time I give it.
It's also like instant
My
fix
steps,
munis,
right.
like, just hacky,
Yeah, it is.
Or it could
Yeah.
be poetry, I don't know. So do you have anything you'd like to add to any of these banks?
I'll add something to all of them.
Okay. How about a highbrow form?
Spirit animal.
Okay, do we wanna, this is the cool, awkward part.
Can I?
The part I was bragging about.
This should be holding this.
Well.
You don't have putty
That's
on
right.
You need some museum putty up there.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Spirit animal. What is your spirit
Oh
animal?
boy.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. I objected the terms of the. Don't participate in the narrative. Yeah. The art action or mode of operation.
Mode of operation. What do you got on there?
Okay, we've got woven from, smeared with, carved from, engraved with, becoming from.
Slowly dissolving.
Mm-hmm.
Like how about?
Mm-hmm.
Am I gonna spell this? Okay.
I was thinking it'd be good to put stem cells in the lowbrow material category. we don't have, but I'm interested in your what you got for lowbrow material.
Well, me and my girlfriend came up with melted popsicle.
Melted popsicle.
Yeah.
Good.
Melted popsicle.
Okay.
I'm gonna write it sad too.
Good. It should be.
Not melting.
Melty.
Melted. You get the idea.
I do.
Alright.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a rolling list. This is gonna be this will come back.
I should have done only
yeah.
emojis maybe.
Right. Is there anything else that you're excited about lately?
Oh God, no, that sucks.
Oh, here.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm excited to see next season of Putty and how you elevate this form. And like your other guest, I want to say, we didn't really have a story of how we met because we just recently met.
Yeah.
And I want to say, talking about archetypes, I told this to your ex-roommate that just when I thought I met all the archetypes of people in Indianapolis in the art scene, you came along and you have such cool energy, so I'm very proud of you for your first season. Thanks for letting me be the last guest.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brian, please. Yeah. All right. I have one final guest, a musical guest. She is an inspiration. She is definitely a witch. She will be performing some swaying synthy sounds for us later. But first, I'd like to talk with my dear friend Liv Mershon. Hi.
I'm so happy.
I'm so happy too.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good.
We don't
I'm
have to
good.
start with that.
I'm good.
Yeah. So I did respond to feedback that you gave me, but I want to attribute it to you first. You were one of the first people to ask me if putty was a play on the word petty. And I said that I don't reject that read.
Yeah.
It's not no.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't start that way. But
Yeah, I was hoping for a lot of gossip.
right. And I don't know if we've really spilled it like we could have.
I mean, it's awkward.
It is.
It's more fun in private.
Right. Maybe that's the thing. I mean, yeah. Just how and when gossip comes out is sort of fascinating. But
Well, a lot of talk shows are pretty petty. And maybe it's more possible to do that when you're Dr. Phil or something.
right. But I am excited to kind of talk about what the positive kind of applications of gossip could be, or just sort of how we could look at it in a positive light. Just kind of you said something really great when I had lunch with you the other day, just that you were like, I don't want to talk about gear anymore with people, I want to talk about my emotions.
Yeah, because I think it's at the root of everything that we do, even if because there's gossip behind talking about gear.
Right.
Who talks to me about gear? They're wanting to find out what my shit is so they can use it for their project.
or like they just want to like fuck me or something, or I don't know, and that's like gossip is under all of it. So
Right.
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily positive, but
Maybe there's this one idea that there'll be a certain line of questioning that's more neutral or something, or that'll be more like technical and, you know, really get to like the nuts and bolts of like what matters about this music or something.
right. I'm always just like, well, what was happening earlier? Oh, you all were talking about the Fanta suites, and I just was like, well, what? How was the sex? You know, but maybe that's like uncomfortable to ask. But I mean, I was curious. I was gonna heckle. I kept myself from heckling.
I was gonna ask someone if they were bottom or top, but I don't. You know, there's a time and a place. But so if you could just kind of give us context for like just what the emotional space or kind of the mental state that bad psychic comes from.
Well, I was in an extremely frustrating romantic relationship with someone who was a musician, like all of my relationships, and I needed to like do my own thing. So I found this synth in a pawn shop, and I like don't know much about gear, obviously.
You're not professionally trained.
No. And I found this Roland synth, and I was like, I'll give you $40 for it. And the guy was like, okay. And I looked it up later, and it was like $350 or something on eBay. So that was cool. And then I just like started fiddling around with it and like using the dudes who I was dating at the time. I was just like using his pedals, and I felt like I was experiencing satisfaction for the first time in a while. And like attention that I wanted. So that's kind of what it was born out of, frustration and a little bit of competition.
Yeah. But the project has gone on for like 5 years now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. What sort of emotional state or mental space would you want to put listeners in with your project?
Well, I hope that people are stoned when they're watching me play. That's like my biggest hope, is that people are like fucked up in some way. I hope they're like tripping and that they're watching something that they're like, this like feels good. That's my goal.
So
but
that's the ideal set of conditions under
yeah.
which to like.
Yeah, that's ideal. But like, as I've said, I'm like a bit of a major amateur, so like I'm always running into technical difficulties, which like pulls everyone out of the experience, because I only play shows like every 6 months. So I've just like accepted that, and as part of the thing that it's like a possibility, but I feel quite prepared tonight. So.
I was gonna say, I mean, that seems kind of thematically in line though, just that the awkwardness would have to be accepted as part of it, like, I mean, with any project, which is not this ever, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't know, just you know, that's part of that complex emotional space or whatever that a project comes out of.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I'm like done being mad about it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, you know, creating like an illusion or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that simple.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, I don't know, I'm 31 now, I feel like a true adult, and I don't want to like act like a dude anymore, you know, like I don't have my shit together completely, and that's okay, and so if I fuck up, you know, I'm willing to admit that.
I like what you were saying about maybe the project being born out of a little bit of competition, and I'm definitely interested in, you know, I like to ask people about place, and I like to ask people, you know, about kind of the milieu that their work comes out of. And so I wonder like how Bloomington has been informative to your project?
Well, I love busting up the boys club, and so that's definitely what like Bad Psychic kind of was for me, like breaking into the whole like Artifacts Guild scene, because it's like completely dominated by men except for Dory Fox. If I'm forgetting someone, forgive me. But
Could you explain what that is, just because?
oh, sorry, the Artifacts Guild is like well, it's now defunct, but it was like the one like experimental metal electronic noise space in Bloomington that people, I mean, it was like an actual venue. I mean, that kind of stuff happens in basements in Bloomington all the time, but it's like the same group of people for the most part. And like I experience feeling extreme competition with the people I date. And so, yeah, I was like definitely trying to be like, I can do this. I can do this too. And yeah, so I mean, I grew up playing sports, so competition has been like a major motivator for me, for better or worse.
I definitely do a lot of thinking about kind of oppositional energy and how much of like my own energy comes from that, and then kind of what happens if you don't have like opposition or something. Like, and so I feel like, you know, that your work comes from Bloomington might be like a little bit inseparable, because, you know, where else would it have, you know, the same thing wouldn't have been born otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I think that competition caused this thing to be born, but I feel really good about the fact that I think it's like finally graduating out of that phase for me, and that feels good because I'm ready to not just be doing it for that reason anymore, to just, and that wasn't the only reason, but it was a major part of it that I'm willing to talk about, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Darwin and shit, right?
Yeah. Maybe one of the special parts of the musical guests that have been at Putty is that almost all of them work interdisciplinarily, and you certainly do. So I wanted to talk about kind of what your work, what this music project shares in common with kind of the image work you make, and how it's different, just kind of what themes come up, what do you find you explore in both those things? And then also, what can you do with this project that you can't do in another medium?
Well, the first thing I think of is wonkiness. I really appreciate that factor in all art forms. And I burped, so what was the second half of what you asked?
Yeah, what the kind of similar characteristics or themes, you know, that work shares, but also what you can do with this that you can't do with images. Or
Yeah.
with, you know.
Well, people have been talking a lot about objects tonight, and yeah, I feel similarly about, I mean, I have like some oil pastels back there that I'm just like, please, somebody fucking take these things. Like, please buy them or just like take them. Because, you know, and put it in your bathroom or whatever, because I don't want to hold on to it anymore. And performing music feels like a more satisfying opportunity to create something that's like aesthetically pleasing and satisfying, and that people can remember or forget or have a conversation under or over, and I can kind of like jizz on them while I'm, you know, in this space, and then it's over and we all go home.
Well, we're excited for you to jizz on us tonight.
I can't wait.
Should we get into it? Do you wanna? Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? That you're
I think that's plenty.
Okay. Well, let's move this stuff out of the way, and you can play some songs.
Yeah, thanks for sticking around tonight, everybody.
Why we could say that meditation doesn't have a reason or doesn't have a purpose. And in this respect, it's unlike almost all other things that we do, except perhaps making music and dancing. Because when we make music, we don't do it in order to reach a certain point, such as the end of the composition. If that were the purpose of music, to get to the end of the piece, then obviously the fastest players would be the best. So likewise, when we're dancing, we are not aiming to arrive at a particular place on the floor, as we would be if we were taking a journey. When we dance, the journey itself is the point. When we play music, the playing itself is the point. And exactly the same thing is true in melody. And therefore, if you meditate, or for an ulterior motive, that is to say, to improve your mind, to improve your character, to be more efficient in life, you've got your eye on the future and you are not meditating. Because the future is a concept. It doesn't exist. As the proverb says, tomorrow never comes. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be. Because time is always now. And that's one of the things we discover when we stop talking to ourselves, stop thinking, we find there is only a present, only an eternal now.
Like I said, I have merch for sale. So if you want it, come buy it from me. It's all $10.
Thank you so much for coming to Putty. Thank you to all my guests. Thank you to Bad Psychic. Thank you to Brian Priest. Thank you to A. Bowden. Thank you to Nat Russell. Please sign up for the email list if you want to know the status of season 2. I'm thinking we're going to start again in spring. There's a clipboard over by the door. I think there's one on the bar. Season 2 passes are going to be for sale. Lots of good stuff's going to happen. So stay in the loop. Bye. Thank you.